Oregon football's got its first decommitment of the 2025 cycle. Not worried about it. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show. Tons to get to today. We got football talk, we got Dillon Gabriel chatter, and Dana Altman creating some momentum around the men's basketball program. Yeah, I think that is entirely possible. But we start with four-star wide receiver Adrian Wilson decommitting from the Ducks, who are back down to just 4 commits in the 2024 cycle, including, Dallas Wilson, a wide receiver who I saw a couple stories, rumors, I don't know what you call them about, could that be another decommitment from the Ducks? But even if that were to take place, I wouldn't be concerned about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was singing the praises of Junior Adams earlier this week on the show, Oregon's wide receivers coach, and with good reason. He has proven to be a high-level recruiter. He gets guys from the transfer portal, and his development and production, which is, every area that you can really assess a position coach, it's all been exceptional so far. And last cycle, Oregon had Jordan Anderson once upon a time, a former 4-star decommit, and he ended up going over to Oregon State, and that's where I believe he's enrolled already and is playing in spring football over in Corvallis. But the Ducks ended up flipping Jeremiah McLaughlin from Ohio State and Ryan Pelham from USC. Now, a couple of you asked me a question about Decorian Moore, who I'll talk about more on tomorrow's show with Brian Smith, and we'll see whether or not this means they're going after the current LSU commit and 5-star wideout a lot harder to try and get him to flip to the Ducks, which I can't say it's impossible. It was not the first thing that popped into my head, but it is certainly, when it was presented to me as an idea, I didn't go, no, I couldn't possibly mean that. That's entirely possible. Maybe they look at Adrian Wilson, someone who, has got plenty of talent himself, and they think that Decorian Moore is a better wide receiver prospect and that they have the ability, given their wide receiver lineup, to go after Moore and, kind of put more of their eggs into that particular basket. And I think that that's entirely possible because for the Ducks, their wide receiver room for 2024 is incredibly set. I mean, ridiculously set. Among the best in the country, with Evan Stewart, the 5-star wideout coming over from Texas A&M, with Tez Johnson, who just set an Oregon record for number of receptions in a season last year and had a 1,000-yard campaign. Oregon hadn't seen a 1,000-yard season since 2018, had 2 of them last year. They could very well have 2 of them again this upcoming season. And then you have Trayshawn Holden, who I think we all agree, for everyone who watched him last year, has a ton of untapped potential and can serve a bigger role in the offense if needed. And then you have Gary Bryant, who was a pretty highly touted recruit, was a pretty coveted guy in the transfer portal, and did a lot of really good things for the Ducks last year. Then you've got Jurion Dickey and Kyler Casper, whose college careers basically haven't even begun because they have not been given consistent opportunities to play on the field yet. So for this year, Oregon's set. But then you think about their 2025 room and you're going, well, wait a minute. Yeah, losing Adrian Wilson, I'm not saying it's great, but you brought in 4 receivers in the 2024 class. Remember, you've got Jack Ressler, who's a 3-star from Modern Day. You've got Ryan Pelham, and who of course flipped from USC. You've got Jeremiah McLaughlin, who flipped from Ohio State. You've got Dylan Gresham in the class as well. I don't believe I am missing any Oregon pass catchers in the 2024 cycle there. It's a really good haul of wide receivers. And, Roger Saliapaga listed as a wide receiver, but really I think he's closer to being a tight end. And you've got Gatlin Bear, of course, who by the time he gets to campus in 2026, that dude's probably going to be physically mature enough to play right away. Like, he'll be a true freshman, but he won't truly be a true freshman. It might need some time to get back into football shape and everything. But I don't know how much of the playbook he can learn while on his LDS mission. If it's a lot, then guess what? He's going to know the playbook very well. But anyway, so that's projecting way into the future. But after this year, Oregon probably loses Evan Stewart to the NFL draft. That's not a guarantee, but certainly a realistic possibility. And then they lose the next three guys, Gary Bryant Jr. and Trayshawn Holden and Tez Johnson. But then guess what? Listen to the crop of young receivers that are ready to contribute in 2025. So do I expect Oregon to go after another receiver or two in the 2025 cycle? I do. I think that makes sense. And typically when we've seen a player lost at this position over here, that results in a flip or a new pursuit at that position over there. And I just trust the staff. I haven't seen a decommitment that's really, hurt Oregon a lot since maybe the Dante Moore situation, but did that even hurt Oregon a ton? Not particularly. I think that, on the whole, the high school players that have flipped away from Oregon have, gone on to find other schools. And I can't think of one, at least off the top of my head, that I look at and go, oh man, Oregon, I wish they could have had that guy, like that was just, and I'm talking someone who was committed to Oregon, decommitted, and then went elsewhere, not someone who Oregon was after and ended up choosing a different school, right? You think Justin Williams, a 5-star linebacker that went to Georgia, or Williams Nwaneri, number 1 defensive lineman that went to Missouri this past cycle. Like there are a number of examples like that, of course, but I think this receiver room is so set. And of course, transfers are always going to be available. But, right now, the 2025 receiver room, it looks pretty crowded. I mean, Kyler Casper is sticking it around as a Duck. Jurion Dickey is going to play, hopefully, barring an injury, his first full season of, healthy college football. And have spring ball. This is Jurion Dickey's first spring ball, remember? He was a late enrollee last year, and he was coming off an injury that he'd suffered whilst in high school, never really got back to 100% during the course of the year. So this is really his actual freshman campaign of football. He'll have the fall, he'll have the spring, and we'll see how much he's able to play during the season. And if Kyler Casper sticks around, well, he'd certainly be one of the guys that'll be near the top of the depth chart. And then you'll have a year of experience for everybody that I mentioned. You've got Dallas Wilson in the 2025 class, and transfers are there. So I think that Oregon will be just fine at the wide receiver position. I don't think that this is going to, spell a string of decommitments, or they're not going to be able to get any high level talent or anything like that. I think they're, in really good shape. And yeah, I would love for it to mean that they're going to continue going after Decorian Moore, because that guy is freakishly talented. And then you think about a wide receiver room in 2026. This is just how recruiting works, folks. This is the way you think. A 2026 receiving room of Decorian Moore, Gatlin Bear, and probably Jeremiah McClellan and or Ryan Pelham. Nasty. That's a nasty wide receiver room. Who's throwing them passes that year? I don't know. Achilles Smith Jr.? You tell me. Dante Moore? You tell me. Luke Moga? Austin Novosad? I don't know. I don't know who's throwing passes to Ducks receivers in 2026, but I think they're in a good spot. Drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments, as always, or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @McLaughlinCFB or at LockedOnDucks. Dillon Gabriel is a left-handed quarterback. The good news is Oregon is supremely well equipped to handle that situation on two fronts. First, let's talk about our friends at Better Together. Is your bracket already busted? Mine is. I'm probably going to finish last in the Locked On Ducks bracket group. Tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers, and hope for the best, or losing the last leg of your pick'em entry? Introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social DFS movement. You get in there, and instead of going against your buddy, you just get to play it together. Like when I'm on the golf course and playing against a friend, that's all good and fun in a 1v1 environment, but I'd rather play with him and play in a two-man scramble or play against two other guys. It's always more fun to be with your friends than against them, which is why you should download Better Together now from the App Store. Sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a chance to win your share of over $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire TV, your number one host, number one spot for live games from highlights to in-depth analysis, everything. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which is, like this weekend. I'm very excited. Or the NCAA Tournament, which is always exciting. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. They recently introduced Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. To stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and more, check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked them out, you should. Visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV to learn more. A lot of times, I think about how much of a maniac I am talking about sports. I filled in for John Canzano earlier today as I'm recording the show on Tuesday night, and that was 3 hours of sports talk radio, and then I did Locked On College Football, and now I'm doing Locked On Ducks, and I'm not even breaking a sweat. Having a good time. Thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. Submit your comments and questions via YouTube or X, or if you want priority access, join the flock over at Subtext, and you get all sorts of other perks over there as well. Free 14-day trial, then it's just $5 a month. Certainly not a requirement, but you do get more than a few perks. Andrew asks a question for the LOD Master. That's Locked On Ducks Master. I presume that's me. I humbly accept that title. I am the only host of this show. So, as Gabriel's the first lefty I can ever recall the Ducks starting signal caller, how do you see that affecting the offense? Does it affect the route structure? Do tackles have to learn totally different schemes? Is it wildly different for wide receivers to catch a ball spinning the opposite direction? I can't say I've ever caught a pass from a lefty. Not sure how big a difference that makes. Well, a couple things. First of all, Will Stein has got a history with a left-handed quarterback. Frank Harris at UTSA, where Stein was prior to his arrival at Oregon, was one of the leading passers in the country, and UTSA had a really good team with Stein as the co-OC, and he was, I believe, the play caller that year, and there were no problems there. It was a tremendously efficient and effective passing offense. So I don't worry about it from the offensive coordinator standpoint about, this is very simplistic, but I'll just say, when I play NCAA 14 revamp, if I ever have a left-handed quarterback, I forget to call plays rolling left instead of right as a strong side rollout. But Gabriel's also capable enough with his arm strength and mobility to be able to make plays from a lot of different spots on the field, and he's gotten a good enough arm. And I don't think that he's restricted from rolling one way or the other. And we saw that with Bo Nix. And, Bo's got a stronger arm than Gabriel has. But certainly, I don't think Gabriel can only roll to his strong side, to the left, to make an on-time, on-target throw that's got some zip on it. So I don't think that is a concern. As for the tackles, I think this is an interesting question, but one that I think Oregon's really well prepared to answer. Not long ago, I had on Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus, and we talked about a variety of things on the show, Dillon Gabriel included. He's a big fan, even more of a fan than Gabriel than I am, and thinks he's got Heisman potential, which, hey, I'd be here for, because that would mean a lot of things are going right for the Ducks. But another guy that he's very high on, in addition to Josh Connerly, who was a big-time recruit and just had a really good season with the Ducks, is a Johnny Cornelius. And I think Cornelius, at least according to Pro Football Focus, had the better season than Connerly this past year. And he's more experienced. He spent his first 2 years at Rhode Island, last year with the Ducks. His announcement to return was a huge one for the offensive line, because when you've got two starting tackles that played for an offensive line that allowed fewer than 10 sacks last year, and also ran the ball effectively, I'll just say you take those. You like having them back. So I don't think that Connerly's going to move to right tackle and Cornelius to left. I think they stay in their same spots. And you can just argue that the importance of having a good right tackle is magnified when you've got a left-handed quarterback. It probably is. Everybody remembers the blind side and how important that is. And what are the most important positions in the NFL? Center and left tackle. Probably left tackle first because you're protecting the quarterback's blind side. And so I don't think there is a drop-off between Connerly being the most important tackle and Cornelius being the most important tackle for Oregon's quarterback. So I think that that's a really, really good situation, and the perfect testament as to why, recruiting and talent acquisition and depth are so important, because this could be something where other teams might struggle and say, yeah, I mean, if, you got a great tackle on your front side, that's awesome. And that's, of course, important. Every position along the offensive line is important. But if you're switching over to the right tackle and he's not quite as good, that might not be as effective for your offense. That could lead to, a sack that wouldn't otherwise have been created in a crucial spot, or a strip sack, or, quarterback getting hit, not sensing the pressure as well. I don't anticipate having any issues. I think Cornelius allowed some ridiculously low number, like 5 pressures last year. It might have even been less than that. So I don't think that is going to be an obstacle. And I think it's something that Oregon is just really, really capable of handling, and I definitely expect them to. As for the ball being thrown from a lefty, I don't know why it would be any different. Do I have a lot of experience catching passes from both a lefty and righty? Admittedly, no, I do not. But receivers have not had a problem over Dillon Gabriel's career catching the ball. Right-handed, left-handed, you either throw the ball. We watched Michael Penix tear it up as a lefty last year. Did it look like his receivers were, having to make some big adjustment compared to having a right-handed quarterback? No, you're either able to put the ball on the money where it needs to be, when it needs to be there, or you're not. And Gabriel has proven in his career that he's someone who does that at a high clip. Completed almost 70% of his passes last year. I think he'll be in that same sort of range with the weapons that he's got in the offensive line. I think that he's got all the tools to succeed and be the same productive player he's been over the last couple of seasons as a starting quarterback in college football. And one interesting thing while we're talking about Gabriel that I heard Will Stein talk about recently, and Oregon is still on spring break right now, but next week I think is when they get back to practicing and whatnot. Stein was asked about the freedom that Gabriel and quarterbacks will have, compared to what Bo Nix had last year. And, to manipulate things on the line of scrimmage. I mean, because Bo Nix, as we were all, able to learn over the course of the year with those Ducks versus them videos, had a good amount of freedom at the line of scrimmage. Dan Lanning trusted Bo Nix a lot, and Will Stein trusted Bo Nix, and a lot of times that worked out. And Bo Nix audibled a lot over the last couple of years. And he says that Gabriel is going to have those same built-in components to running the offense, and that's just a part of how they design their offense and what they want their quarterback to be able to do. I think that says a lot about the caliber of quarterback that they believe Dillon Gabriel is, because Bo Nix was literally the most experienced quarterback in college football. Gabriel might break his record this year for most starts. I think if Gabriel plays and starts 12 regular season games, which fingers crossed that takes place, then he'll be able to push past that mark. But to say that you've got the same freedom as Bo Nix, a very cerebral, heady quarterback, and we saw that on full display quite a bit last year. I think that says a lot about what the staff thinks of Gabriel and what he's capable of, and also probably at least in those first 2 practices that did take place, how they feel he's picking up the offense and what his chemistry looks like with his offensive line and with his pass catchers as well, who are going to be among the best in the Big Ten and in the country. So I think that Gabriel will be totally fine. I don't think having a lefty, it'll be different just to watch on TV and in person, because I haven't had an Oregon quarterback be a lefty in my lifetime. I've seen a lot of Oregon quarterbacks. A lot of you have seen a lot of Oregon quarterbacks. Been a while since there's been a lefty. So, it'll look different, but, it looked different once upon a time when Oregon went under center in 2022 with the jumbo package. As long as it works, it's all good. Good question, though. Is Dana Altman building momentum? We'll talk about that. First, let's talk about our friends at Nissan. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The North Carolina Tar Heels are the Nissan Armada. This one seed is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they secured a spot in the Sweet 16 this Thursday against Alabama. Iowa State, that's the Nissan Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves. Entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country, they take on Illinois in a 2-3 matchup in the Sweet 16. And the NC State Wolfpack are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance in their first two games in the tournament. Wins over Texas Tech and Oakland have set them up to play Marquette in the Sweet 16. They say win life, go Rogue, and that's what the Wolfpack have done here. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. This episode also brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So Dana Altman had a heck of an end to this season, silenced any doubters, critics, haters, whatever you want to call them, about whether he should be Oregon's men's basketball coach. Wins the Pac-12 tournament, gets the NCAA tournament, wins a game, should have been in the Sweet 16. Couple of missteps here and there, bummer, but guess what? It was exciting, it was thrilling. And I think more than anything, at least for the fans, for a lot of fans out there of this Oregon basketball program, I think that getting to the tournament when it looked like it was going to be a third straight year of the NIT has just injected life and energy, hope and optimism into Oregon basketball again. Because you've got a young core of guys, and as I'm recording this show, KJ Evans, who was reportedly, according to James Crepea of the Oregonian, undecided about his future. I don't think he's going to leave. I think that's just, a comment that he gave. I don't expect him to enter the portal. I'd be bummed if he did. I think it'd be a mistake for him personally if he did. And I think that if he returns to the Ducks, he's poised for a huge, huge year next season alongside potentially and hopefully Nate Biddle in the front court. And we know that Jackson Shellstad is back in the backcourt. So you've got a young core of players. Plus, Mookie Cook didn't even get the chance to have a freshman season, unfortunately, because of injury. But he, along with Evans and Shellstad, were all highly touted recruits in the 2023 cycle. And, Shellstad put his full potential on display. That guy is already a stud. He's only going to get better. Needs to get a little stronger, perhaps. But Evans, same sort of thing. Could bulk up a hair, but I thought he bulked up over the course of the season. His defense is great, and his offense just needs a little bit of refinement. So I think that the young core is there, but it just felt like a breath of rejuvenation into a program that had, for the last couple of years, certainly had some injuries, but I felt like the previous two seasons under Dana Altman were underachieving more than this year's team when it looked like they might not make the NCAA tournament. So once it got down to Pac-12 tournament or bust to make the big dance, which of course they did, I think that coaching job was more impressive from Dana Altman given the volume of injuries, which increased compared to the previous years, than what you'd seen in the last two NIT appearances from the Ducks. So I think that the ability to go on the run, it was so exciting. It was so fun. I think a lot of people saw the heart that Jermaine Couisnard had played with, having his family there, and the just relentless passion and raw emotion that N'Faly Dante put on display, and the maximum effort that guy showed every single game. I think those two guys, in those couple of weeks, they had career performances in various games. Couisnard against South Carolina, Dante in the Pac-12 title game against Colorado, and then both were sensational again in the round of 32 matchup with Creighton, who, given the history of the tournament with Oregon being in this spot, are now going to go win the national championship. So congrats to the Creighton Blue Jays. But I think that for the Ducks, it was such a fun thing to watch. It was exciting. It was exciting. It was fun. It was heartfelt. It was passionate. And it was, hey, let's just go make the most of it. Let's just go and show and remind everybody that Oregon basketball is still here, that Dana Altman's still here, that this program can be one of the best in the country. And I think that's perhaps the biggest takeaway, the most important aspect of what they did, that reminded everyone, yeah, this Dana Altman guy is still a really good coach. And that puts the league on, not the league, I mean, sure, the league, the Big Ten, but it puts the country on notice and kind of reminds them, yeah, this is someone who you want to go play for. So a bunch of players across the country from low and mid-major schools and high major schools are in the transfer portal. A lot of talented guys, lots of options. And I'm more than a little curious to see who Dana Altman is able to add, because this is an Oregon team that is losing the guys who they were especially riding down the stretch to get to the NCAA tournament, win a game, and almost get to the Sweet 16. Jermaine Couisnard and N'Faly Dante, they're done. They're out of eligibility. So now you go back to the drawing board on, okay, what guys are you bringing in? Well, Oregon hasn't recruited in the 2024 cycle the same way that they did in the 2023 cycle. And I think that's because they expect two things. Number one, that all three of the talented freshmen will return: Mookie Cook, KJ Evans, Jackson Shellstat. And number two, that they are going to be able to pull in players from the transfer portal that come in and make an impact. And, Dante was a high school recruit. Couisnard was a transfer. And, I've answered questions on the show before about, well, should Altman really keep going after the 5 stars? They aren't really working out. Bull and Troy Brown didn't do a lot, and there were some others. And I understood that argument, but I just think that the rating system's a little bit different. In college basketball, the numbers sometimes can get a little inflated. The stars can get inflated, particularly for big guys. Like Francis Okoro and Frank Kepnong were both 5-star recruits. Good players, but not anywhere near the overall talent of N'Faly Dante, who was a 5-star recruit, or Nate Biddle, who was a 5-star recruit, or Shellstad, or Evans, right? Like, I just don't think that 24/7 is quite as accurate all the time with their star ratings for basketball players compared to football. But I think that if you keep those 3 freshmen and they're a part of the rotation, you get a couple more returners like, a Bam Tracy or a Brennan Rigsby. If Keyshawn Bartholomew is able to come back and be healthy, if Nate Biddle is probably the most important guy outside of KJ Evans that Oregon needs to come back healthy next year, or else you really have a need in the front court, because Evans can play a smaller 5, but is really best as a 4, and then you can play a big lineup. And man, when Evans and Dante were both on the floor at the end of the year, that Oregon team was just dangerous defensively, just absolutely dangerous. And what I mean by that is their length, shot blocking, and just defensive prowess was so good. And that's when Dana's teams have been at their best. The Final Four team had, both Jordan Bell and Chris Boucher until Boucher got hurt in the tournament. And they were able to get the most out of Jordan Bell. And they were able to get the most out of guys like Dylan Ennis to, help make that run. And, Cavell Bigby Williams was a big man that gave him some solid minutes and such. But I think that team has a real chance to win the national championship if Chris Boucher stays healthy, because Dana just coaches the bigs defensively so well. It is so well ingrained into how to play in that system, and Oregon's just always a great shot blocking team. So if you have Evans and Biddle next year on the floor at the same time, good luck driving into the paint. I wish you good luck, because that's what everyone was facing this year. Dante was in everybody's head, and Evans was a really good defender, and he's only going to get better. So I think this year has just been great to inject life back into the program. I think the fan support that Oregon got at Matthew Knight Arena this year was really, really good, and I expect it to continue to improve as the team continues to win and such. So I'm just looking forward to next year in a big way. I'm always looking forward to next year because I miss when Oregon sports aren't on. Baseball and softball are on right now. Baseball starts a 4-game series with Seattle today, that being Wednesday, depending on when you're listening to or watching this show. But yeah, I am bullishly optimistic about Dana Altman's Oregon basketball program right now. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.